This is a brief lecture on behavioral interviewing, and I am on a website right now called The Muse, which is a job search company. And you will find behavioral interview questions and advice on behavioral interviews all over the web. I just arbitrarily happened to pick this site, and I would refer you to it to study on your own. So behavioral interviewing is a type of interviewing that asks you questions based on your past behavior. And this is done because human resource research has found that when people are asked general interview questions, for example, tell me your 3 best qualities, or tell me where you'd like to be 5 years from now. Those general questions are not predictive of behavior on the job to the extent that behavioral questions that ask about actual past behavior are. So in other words, you are likely to get behavioral interview questions in most of the interviews that you go to now because employers know that these questions actually will tell them something about you. So behavioral interview questions are questions like these, and I'm going to scroll down here, and they often start with talk about a time, or give me an example of a time, or describe a time. In other words, they're going to ask you to tell them a specific story about an actual experience that you have had on a job, or if you haven't had a job, you can talk about experiences in school or with volunteer organizations or with teams as well. But here's an example of a question. Tell me about a time when you had to work closely with someone whose personality was very different than yours. Or give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team. How did you handle that? And as you can tell from these questions, behavioral interview questions are designed to find out what your soft skills are. And soft skills are those skills that are focused on dealing with people, communicating effectively, taking responsibility. In other words, they're not technical skills. They're skills that show what kind of worker you're going to be. And if you look on this website, you're going to see lots and lots of questions. And to be prepared for a behavioral interview, you really need to have a whole mental library full of stories when you go into that interview. Now, you don't necessarily need a story to answer every single one of these questions because often the same story will answer more than one of these questions. And you may be thinking, but I haven't had that much experience. Employers don't necessarily expect a big dramatic story because most of us haven't had big dramatic jobs. But we've all had situations in the workplace where perhaps we've had to deal with a rush, or a customer that was not happy, or a conflict with a coworker. And we can all tell stories about how we effectively handled that. And that's what the employer is looking for. They're looking for signs of good judgment, good time management, good people skills, good communication, good work ethic, and you need to prepare for these interviews, as I said before, by having this library of mental stories ready that you can pull out and tell an employer. So preparation is the key to preparing for an interview, and preparation is the key to preparing for your impromptu speech, which is going to be a behavioral interview question. Now, how do you go about answering a specific behavioral interview question? Well, one of the things that this website recommends, as well as many other websites, is the STAR method. Now, what does that mean? STAR means that you are going to, first of all, speak about the situation, explain the situation first, explain what your responsibility or role was in that situation, explain what steps you took to address it, and this is really important because sometimes people forget this one, explain the result. So the situation, the task, the action, and the result. And if you tell your stories with those 4 quick things, then you will have an effective answer to these questions. And keep in mind that this is an interview. Nobody expects you to spend 2 to 3 minutes answering an interview question, and indeed, employers don't want you to spend 2 to 3 minutes answering an interview question because then they don't have time to get to the other questions. So your stories have to be short and quick, but they do need to cover this. And if you will use this website or any other website that discusses behavioral interviewing to practice and prepare, you will do just fine on your impromptu speech. And you will have an assignment that asks you to do some brainstorming on your stunning moments on the job. And that will help you prepare for this speech.